Evanston, Illinois, where the Northwestern Wildcats are anxious to put the 2024 season behind them. 1 year after a surprise 8-win campaign that earned David Braun Big Ten Coach of the Year honors, the Cats captured just 4 and hit the transfer portal hard in an effort to get back on track. With a highly touted QB, a number of new O-linemen, and a few key defenders now in the fold, there is optimism on the lakefront as the Cats prepare for their final season in their temporary home. We take a deep dive into the purple and white on our Northwestern football training camp special now. Welcome to Evanston along the lakefront. The Northwestern Wildcats getting set for the 2025 season. Will be their final one played in their temporary home before the Cats open up an $850 million football palace in 2026. Dave Revson and Jake Butt with you. This is the place that wowed everyone when it opened 7-8 years ago. Northwestern's practice facility. Again, the Wildcats get their new stadium next year. Trying to get some momentum going into that stadium this year, Jake. We're getting ready to watch them practice here today. What are you going to be watching for?
Well, I was told there's going to be a live goal line period. So as a football guy, I'm always excited to see that. Goal line, tackling, smash mouths. But of course, I'm excited to see the new quarterback, Preston Stone. So much to be excited about. I think he's one of the more talented quarterbacks in our conference. And then the offensive line. I mean, David Braun spoke at length at Big Ten Media Days that he felt this group was upgraded. He told us last year that he felt that was a key to their team's success. So I'd start there and say the offensive line, the quarterback.
I don't think there's any secret that for this program to be who they want to be, they have to be better than they were a year ago on offense. It's really been, unfortunately, a little bit of a consistent trend where they just haven't been an explosive offensive team. They haven't been the team that they want to be, and they put their defense in challenging spots. And the defense has been good, but it hasn't been quite good enough to win them the number of games they want to win. Certainly wasn't last year.
It's complementary football, and I think that the fact that they have won games historically when the offense has lagged behind is both disappointing and exciting. It's exciting mainly because, hey, if we can get something out of this offense, all of a sudden you're talking about a Northwestern team that can be competitive and start to take that next step. I'll be honest, I think Preston Stone has the talent to get them to compete with many teams here in the Big Ten Conference. I'm excited about the new receiver, Wilde, some of the new receivers in general, but specifically Wilde because of his career stats, how impressive they are. Familiar face Cam Porter there in the backfield, and year 2 coordinators too. What are the small, subtle changes that each guy makes?
Right. You've got Tim McGarigle on the defensive side. And of course, he's someone who's been here for years, was a part of the staff going back a number of years under Mike Hankwitz. But then you've got Zach Lujan, who came here last year to run the offense. And frankly, it wasn't all that much better. I think a little disappointing. But as you say, they got subpar quarterback play. They weren't good enough on the offensive line. It's not all on the coaches. And I think to their credit, Northwestern identified that. And they were very active in the portal, far more active than they've been historically. You think previous 3 years, Jake, they signed 16 players total in the portal. This year they went out and got 15.
Yeah, it's probably one of the big challenges with Northwestern, too, just being the academic powerhouse that they are. But I give credit to the coaching staff. And, even going back to last year for Lujan, you have to adjust to your players. You have to try to give your guys a chance. And Coach Braun told us, they were grasping for straws even to try to find a plug different guys across the offensive line. They've added depth in the transfer portal. They've developed some young guys. Excited to see it all come together.
Identified the weaknesses. They feel like they've addressed a lot of them. Can't wait to see how that all pans out on the practice field. NU addressing its offensive deficiencies by grabbing QB Preston Stone out of the transfer portal from SMU. Stone was the Mustangs quarterback 2 years ago and was outstanding, finishing 14th in the nation in pass efficiency ahead of Quinn Ewers, Michael Penix, Drake May, among others. Got hurt at the end of that year and ended up losing his starting job, leading him to move on. He'll have a veteran running back in the backfield with him in Cam Porter. That duo with Jake.
All right, Preston, I want to start with you, man. Take me back to the decision ultimately to come here to Northwestern, put your trust in Coach Braun and Coach Lujan.
I think as soon as I stepped on campus, I knew Coach Braun was a different kind of coach. I could just feel a level of sincerity and fire for the game that was different than a lot of coaches I was recruited by. And then I actually had a really cool opportunity on my visit to sit down with some of the leaders on the team, like Cam, Mac, and Carmine, and they kind of laid out, like, here's what our culture is, here's our standard, and I knew this was going to be the place for me to be.
I want to stay there for a second because that's been a major point for Coach Braun. He said, like, this is a player-led team. The locker room chemistry is off the charts. I mean, you have a unique perspective, coming in as an outsider. What has stood out to you specifically about the chemistry?
Yeah, I'd say more than anything, the work ethic here is just off the charts. Coming from where I was at last year to here, I've had to step up my game on all facets, not just on the field, but in the weight room, in the training room. Everyone's here at least 10 minutes before meetings and lifts. So just being consistent and kind of gaining that trust from the guys like Cam and the leaders on the team who have already established such a strong work ethic.
Cam, I mean, being one of the leaders, why is that important, and where did that really start for you guys?
I think it started immediately after our last loss against Illinois. I think as leaders, once we figured out all the guys who was coming back, we kind of came together and said, okay, what's going to be our standard going into this offseason? We understand how important the offseason is, and we wanted to make sure that everything was buttoned up, top to bottom, and making sure that guys were bringing their best each and every day.
The standard for you, I mean, I feel like you've been at Northwestern for forever, man. Yeah. This is the final go-around, right. The last season. What expectations and goals do you have for the season? My personal goals, I always have personal goals for myself, but, I'm really team-oriented this year. You know what I mean? The success of the team is first and foremost. We worked really hard this offseason to make sure, that we have success on the field this year. So I'm really excited to bring it with my guys and, work each and every day. Preston, for the Northwestern fans sitting at home, how would you describe your game, and what are some of your strengths?
Especially in our offense, I really just see myself as a distributor. We have playmakers in every single position room, in the running back room, receiver room, tight end room. So my job is really just to get the ball in the hands of playmakers, and then for the 3 or 4 plays of the game where I have to go do something special, I'll be ready for it.
Who are some of those playmakers that have stood out at this point?
Running back room is unbelievable right now. With Cam, Joe, and Como, we've got a whole stable of backs that are going to put a lot of pressure on defenses to load the box, which should really open up stuff in the pass game. For guys like Ricky, Griff, Frank, really excited to take some shots and throw it downfield to those guys.
Cam, I know a big piece of the rushing success is the offensive line, and Coach Braun has been vocal about he thinks this unit this year will really take strides. What have you seen from the trenches?
Coach Braun is exactly right, and he brought in really good guys, along with guys that we already had, to make sure that not only do we have, a good starting five, but we have good depth as well. We're really excited about young guys, old guys. We're really excited to see what we can do running the ball this year.
When you think about the system here with Coach Zach, what are some of the principles that excite you?
I love it. The way he describes my role is he's giving you the keys to the car, and you just got to drive it. Like I was saying, I feel like we can hurt defenses in a lot of different ways, whether it's, 10, 11, 12, 13 personnel, doing a lot with our shifts and our motions. Having an outstanding run game, like I said, put pressure on defenses to where, once the defense starts to suck into the box, we'll take a shot.
All right, last question for you. We got to see live goal line period today. I was told the offense won, and that means you get ice cream. What's you guys' favorite ice cream flavors? Cam, we'll start with you.
I kind of like those Snicker bars that that you can freeze. Yes. Those are insane. That's probably my favorite.
I'm going to go with the ice cream sandwich. 2 cookies on each side.
You can't go wrong with
Absolutely.
Ice cream, right? Especially
Absolutely.
at the midpoint of camp. All right. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
First and goal. It's Porter busting out of the tackle. Touchdown, Cam Porter. Cam Porter, the captain. Why not? Hand off to Hyman. Second gear. Touchdown. What a run from Joseph Hyman. Rourke is dragged down. Anto Saka hit again, and it was Hubbard again. Ball is out of the sack. It was bounced out. It's a tie.
we've discussed some of the portal haul for Northwestern, but a good nucleus back for the Cats, including outstanding tackle Caleb Tiernan. They like the D-line a lot. Aiden Hubbard, Najee Story, Anto Saka as well, a guy NFL scouts really rave about. Also returned Uihlein, their leading tackler a season ago. And head coach David Braun's with us now. And coach, as you looked at the players you had coming back, and we just showed some of the marquee names, how did that impact portal strategy? Like, where did you identify the biggest priorities?
Priority number one was retention. When you got a guy like, Caleb Tiernan and Anto Saka and a young Josh Fussell and Michael Kilbane, I mean, the list goes on. Priority number one was retention, but there was also very honest conversations about where the roster was at and what we needed to do to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and say, this is a team that can compete for a Big Ten championship. And we knew we had a lot of work to do. Identifying positions of need, the offensive line and competitive depth was absolutely critical. We knew at the corner position we needed to bring in someone that had played a lot of college football. There was other positions to address, wide receiver position, excited about some of the youth coming up in that room, but very unproven room. Knew at the quarterback position we had to improve our level of play there, and we were aggressive. And ultimately, we wanted to make sure that we were getting really good football players, but also young men that were going to, be great additions as people. And that's what I'm most proud of all the guys that we've brought in, their work ethic, their willingness to embrace Northwestern, be great teammates, on top of being really good football players. This football team is much better positioned this year than we were last year.
So personnel is a huge part of that equation as you look to get better. What else, as you guys self-assessed, where you said we've got to improve this above and beyond the roster?
Yeah. I mean, we say the cliches. I say the cliches about playing complementary football, but we need to deliver on that. How do you win in the Big Ten? You win by being big and physical and winning the line of scrimmage. Well, we had to address some things to make sure that we were delivering on that. And ultimately, we got to find ways to differentiate ourselves. The way that we do it at Northwestern doesn't always have to be the norm or status quo. We, as a coaching staff, whether it be offensively, defensively, special teams, how are we finding ways to apply pressure to our opponent, win in the margins? I've been really pleased with the progression that we've seen on staff and a willingness to really take ownership in a 4-8 season and say it's far from good enough. And we have to evaluate everything. We still got a long way to go. There's a lot of hard work ahead, but really excited about where we're trending right now, Dave.
Coach, curious about your strategy as a head coach, because it's your staff, it's your background, players from the portal, but really there's a theme conference-wide of teams going down to the FCS level to bring talent onto their roster. How does your background with the FCS benefit you? Yeah,
I think it benefits me from a standpoint of understanding the caliber of play that occurs at the FCS level and the development that occurs. Maybe a young man at 17 wasn't ready to play in the Big Ten, but under great development, a guy like Griffin Wilde or Evan Bernstein, are positioned to play at this level and thrive at this level. I think what we saw at Indiana last year, a lot of lower level guys that were able to come up and thrive in the Big Ten, but the FCS background. You're kind of torn, honestly. There's party that, really values that. And there's also party that goes back to your North Dakota State days and says, hey, Big Ten, we developed these guys. Stay away,
Absolutely. Yeah. Coach, I go back to the David Braun that took the stage at Big Ten Media Days a few years ago to the David Braun today, running through the line of scrimmage for your live goal line period. I mean, this is your team. What has changed from the David Braun back then to the David Braun today?
Yeah, I think ultimately, back in 2023, it was truly one day at a time. Is trying to find a way just to, support the guys within the program, having no idea how long my tenure would be here, and just wanted to make sure that we did right by those young men that stuck it out. The last couple of years have provided an opportunity to zoom out. The addition of Mark Jackson, someone that's in the foxhole with me, embarking on a crazy landscape of college football. And I think I'm learning, we're going to continue to surround this program with great people, great coaches, double down on our non-negotiables, but also make decisions that are going to help us evolve. And I think there was a time where I was stuck in, here at Northwestern it's been done this way, so we better keep doing it that way. And ultimately, that would be foolish of me to have that conversation with our staff or even myself. Like, college football slipped on its head. We have to change a lot of what we're doing, and we've restructured the way that we approach recruiting, the way that we approach the transfer portal, how we're utilizing revenue share, how we're going to really challenge these guys to develop at an expedited rate. I've had to grow a lot personally, and feel like I'm doing that, need to continue to do that, but ultimately feel like we're in a really good position right now.
As far as the team this year goes, we're about that halfway point of camp. The team's identity and strengths start to reveal themselves. How would you describe the identity and strengths of your football team? I mean, it's going to sound silly and it's repetitive, but, it's easy to talk about being humble and hungry in January and then in spring and even at the beginning of camp. But, if you're truly humble and you're truly hungry, going into the dog days of camp, that's where your true toughness is going to show up. I've even acknowledged, guys, we're a little dinged up, and we may have to modify practice a little bit. And you got your leadership coming to you, 6-year guys like Cam Porter, like no, don't stop challenging us, keep bringing it, coach. Like when your leadership is like, there's no entitlement, no complacency. They're embodying everything that they've embodied all off season long. The culture of the team and the hunger from within is in a really good spot.
I want to ask you just a little bit about the opener. You head down to Tulane. The weather can get a little steamy down there, especially basically 11 o'clock kickoff, I believe, because they're on Central Time, 11 Central Time kickoff. So end of August, it's going to be uncomfortable. What can you do to get your team ready to play in an environment like that?
I think the first thing is just to address the adversity that's waiting for us and the difficult challenge. Phenomenal football team, very well coached, difficult environment. The weather certainly will play a factor. And just embrace an attitude of good. Like we want to do hard things. We understand that the schedule that awaits us is really difficult. We understand that competing and winning in the Big Ten is really difficult. Well, we're starting off with an incredibly difficult challenge week 1, and we're going to embrace that. And then it gets down to the tactics of how we're going to actually prepare. Ultimately, if it's pushing practice back a little bit to get a little bit more heat, if it's going inland to get away from the breeze off the lake, if it's some unique ways of getting our guys exposed to some saunas to get exposed to some heat, and then ultimately understanding and first team meeting a fall camp, Dave, it was, hey, it's going to take this entire team. We need to lean into our depth. We need to lean into the development. And if ultimately, guys that we traditionally wouldn't think we're leaning on in week 1 to be huge special teams contributors that can take some reps off of guys that are playing a ton of offense and defensive football, that's something that's going to have to show up for us on August 30th.
Head coach of the Wildcats, David Braun. Thanks, Coach.
Thanks, Dave.
Northwestern has a veteran piece to build around in Cam Porter, who we visited with earlier. Has a chance to make some history, joining Damian Anderson, Tyrell Sutton, and their all-time leading rusher, Justin Jackson, as the only players to lead Northwestern in rushing in 4 different seasons. 3 puts them in good company already. Anderson and Darnell Autry both finished in the top 5 in the Heisman Trophy balloting. Porter, one of the weapons at the disposal of OC Zach Lujan. Joined now by Zach Lujan, the offensive coordinator here. Coach, it didn't go great, obviously, last year in your first year as the OC. What are the biggest things that you learned from last year that you think you can apply this year?
Really just, the benefit of a second year within the offense and being really rules-based with our teaching so that it's both sustainable for the older guys in terms of growing within the offense and obviously for some new guys coming in and learning it and being able to pick it up fairly quickly.
Well, you also needed better quarterback play, and, man, you went out and got a really good one in Preston Stone. We were both very impressed with him today. You identified him very early on in the portal. What were the characteristics that made you guys feel like Preston was the right guy for you?
Yeah, first and foremost, kind of throughout his entire life, he's been a winner, and he embodies that trait in everything that he does. Played a lot of football, played at a high level, processes incredibly well. And then he's just a tough, gritty football player. He loves ball to his core, and he's done a great job in just coming in here and putting his head down and working his tail off each and every day.
What do his abilities unlock for you as a play caller?
Yeah, it really kind of opens things up in terms of whether it's access, RPO, RPOs or being able to push the ball downfield. And if teams want to play with the loaded box, we'll be able to take some shots and push the ball downfield in that regard. And again, he's played a ton of winning football, so being able to get us in the right checks and just the veteran presence that he has and that he kind of commands the entire offense with.
I know when we talked last year, Coach Braun mentioned, nothing really mattered unless the offensive line was addressed. And he's raved about how this group has progressed heading into this season. What's your assessment of the trenches?
Yeah, incredibly proud of those guys. Caleb Tiernan's kind of been the workhorse leading the charge up front, but it's been an incredibly competitive spring ball that's led to an incredibly competitive fall camp. And, the best thing is it's really an iron sharpens iron approach where, yes, they're competing with each other each and every day, but they're pushing each other and making each other better as well. And, we got a pretty good defensive line as well, so it's fun to be able to go against them each and every day.
How do you become more explosive as an offense?
Yeah, I think part of it's, really leaning into some of the playmakers that we have and being able to get in the ball in space, being able to change up some of the tempo stuff overall.
Who would those guys be? Like, who do you need to get it to?
The first guy who comes to mind, obviously, is Caleb Kumalafe. He's had a great fall so far. But really our running back room overall, him and Joe Hyman are incredibly explosive. And, Cam Porter's been a workhorse in this conference for a long, long time now. But on the perimeter, we've got a bunch of young receivers with Griffin Wilde and Chase, and then obviously some of the other guys as well who've done a great job of just putting their head down and working their tail off. Frank yesterday, we were working a 2-minute drill, and it was 3rd and 26 or something along those lines, and he goes up and makes a contested catch for a first down, and it leads to us having an opportunity to win the 2-minute drill, and just doing a great job of competing his tail off as well.
Some of the other guys would include the tight ends, Coach. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to keep the trend going. I'm always asking about, you got 9 or 10 on the roster, I believe, right now. It's a large number of tight ends. How important are they to what you do, and what do you see from that group?
Yeah, it really allows us to do a lot of the 12 and 13, even 14 personnel groupings overall, which can stress a defense, potentially lock them in a coverage or two, and then create some mismatch and advantageous situations overall. And, give those guys a lot of credit in terms of they have to know the offense just as well as the quarterbacks with where we position them and put them overall. And they've done a great job of not just leaning in, not just buying in, but owning the entire offense and mastering their craft.
Last question for you, Coach. When it's humming, when it's at its best, what are the adjectives that you want people to use to describe your offense?
We talk about 3 things. We talk about playing fast. Obviously, that's game speed, right? Fast guys doing fast things, but play speed as well. Inevitably, the defense is going to come out with some different look, and we need to be able to execute at a high level. The second thing is playing physical, and that starts up front in the trenches and, quite frankly, punch them in the mouth. And the third thing is playing to win, and not playing with any fear or hesitation or self-doubt, but quite frankly, just playing to win and going out there and being the best version of ourselves.
Zach Lujan, always a pleasure. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Northwestern's offense, frankly, has some room for improvement. The Cats averaged fewer than 18 points per game last year, 4th fewest among power conference teams. This unfortunately continued what has been a disturbing trend since 2019. The Wildcats are the lowest scoring power conference team in the nation. A school once renowned for its innovative offenses has only finished in the top 80 in the nation in scoring once in the last dozen years. And I think it's fair to point out, Jake, that even though the offense hasn't necessarily been great year in and year out, they've had some really good teams in that stretch. I mean, they've won 5 bowl games in that dozen years, won 2 divisions. So they've figured out a way. And when they have been good, it's had a lot to do with good quarterback play. And even look at their most recent 2 good teams. You had Peyton Ramsey who transferred in. You had Ben Bryant who transferred in. You have a transfer quarterback this year in Preston Stone. What did you see from him today?
Yeah, I mean, just watching him, he's really talented. And I had the thought, Dave, that I don't think there's a team in the Big Ten that has experienced a bigger upgrade at the quarterback position than Northwestern has with Preston Stone. I mean, he throws an extremely catchable ball. And one thing that stands out is the wide hashes in college. A lot of quarterbacks aren't comfortable throwing from the far hash to the far sideline. Preston, extremely comfortable and accurate. So for Coach Lujan with this offense, anything that he wants to call, I believe Preston Stone is going to be able to execute. The question is who's he going to be throwing to? Felt like often he was looking number 17's way for Wilde, the transfer.
Yeah, Griffin Wilde clearly is a very talented wide receiver. I think after that, it's a lot of question marks. And David Braun has said this. We're counting on guys who haven't necessarily produced that we hope can step up. Frank Covey had a nice day, I thought, today. But that is the challenge, that it just doesn't seem like there are obvious answers at wide receiver. You think of last year, Bryce Kurtz, A.J. Henning, these are guys who produced in the Big Ten. There's not as much of that. There's a little bit more of, you hope that one of these guys will emerge, or a couple of them.
Yeah, it's a big piece. And look, Wilde is really trustworthy. I mean, he's a guy that 1,000 yards, double-digit touchdowns last season at South Dakota State. And but I think the other piece of this, too, because I look at Wilde and I say that's a guy that can catch 50 balls, a volume receiver, but this offense has lacked explosion. Yep. And when you look at the schedule, you need to be able to not just have big plays when the defense makes a mistake. You need to be able to score touchdowns. I don't know where the explosion comes from that wide receiver room. Wilde is more of a possession receiver. Komolafe, the running back, was praised by Coach Braun. They need to find easy points where you can just get the ball into the hands of your playmaker and they could score from anywhere on the field. And a piece of this is they're excited about the offensive line, so they should have time to throw. There should be some openings for the running backs to exploit, but can they exploit it when the opportunity presents itself?
I would add Joseph Hyman's been a part of some really big plays when he's been here.
He's fast.
Again, he is really fast. But again, those plays are few and far between. And so can you get more explosive? Offensive line, I think it's clear that it's, I mean, just in terms of the depth and the number of quality guys that you can rotate through there, it's a huge upgrade from where they were a year ago.
100%. Body, just the body types, the weight, the length, the size, they look like they're trending towards, if not already there, a Big Ten offensive line. And, you know, Coach Braun was candid to us, too. I mean, injuries are going to happen. That's just a part of it. He felt last year they were just, you know, grabbing for straws, just putting guys, whoever was available at a certain position. He felt like they had real competition and depth and options. That's only going to benefit them. And then the other piece is you're playing against a great defensive line. I think we're both excited about the Northwestern defensive front. Iron sharpens iron. That should benefit them. So there's a lot of reasons to be excited about Northwestern's offense.
Yeah, and you look at Caleb Tiernan, I mean, he looks the part of it, like a big-time.
All Big Ten potential, for sure.
Left tackle. So I think there's plenty of reasons to be excited. I do think, like, to your point, it feels like wide receiver is the one area where you look at it and say, there's some answers there. Do you have enough answers to be a team that knocks some people off?
Yeah, and being healthy is another piece of this. It's true for Northwestern and some of these teams competing in the middle. I like Northwestern's starting unit. But, man, Bryce Kurtz dealt with injuries. You know, A.J. Henning had dealt with injuries. Health is going to be a big factor.
And we've seen some health issues early on in their careers from some of these young wide receivers they're counting on this year. So they will keep their fingers crossed to see whether or not those guys can stay healthy. We will turn our attention to the defense next. Not a bad unit under first-year coordinator Tim McGarigle last year. What's the next step for that D? He'll let us know straight ahead. Solid group of transfers for Northwestern on the defensive side. Includes a number of guys who have been starters at other power conference programs in Yanni Karlaftis, Dylan Tatum, and Jack Sadowski. Fred Davis was a top 50 recruit nationally coming out of high school, played in the All-American Bowl, started his career at Clemson, played last year at Jacksonville State. Some intriguing new pieces for coordinator Tim McGarigle. Tim McGarigle joining us now. And Coach, as you look at this defense, this is your second full year as a coordinator. So as you look back on last year, what are the biggest things that you learned about yourself, your first year calling a defense?
You know, trust the players. Trust the players. We got a great group of guys that are going to go out there and make plays and don't overthink it. We practice for a reason and, call what we practice, put them in position to make plays, and that's who we're going to lean on this year.
As last year went on, it felt like you guys struggled a little bit to hold up against the run. The beginning of the year was less of an issue. How did you address that?
Yeah, I think, that was one of our things coming into the offseason is, we did not finish the last couple games versus the run as we wanted to. So that was a linchpin the whole season, the whole offseason to identify that, work towards that, get bigger, faster, stronger, and that's a focus of camp.
One thing that helps is having a dominant defensive line. I think we were both impressed looking at that unit up front. What's been your impression of that unit, and what does a dominant defensive line allow you to do as a play caller? Absolutely.
Great run defense starts inside. We have a veteran, returning captain in Carmine Bastone, who is the anchor of that defensive line. We got some defensive ends that are veterans, and Anto, Saka, Aiden Hubbard, and we're going to lean on those guys, to have a big year for us.
I want to ask you about the playbook, and one thing that's cool for us is we get to tour the conference and see different defensive philosophies. You know, you might see one defense with a ton of exotic pressures and coverages. Your defense seems to be true defense. Rely on one another, do your job. Why would you choose to use that playbook?
Yeah, we want to play defense, not defenses. Okay, so we want to when teams put on the tape, you know, we want to out physical people. We want to out execute people. We want to be seen as a disciplined style of defense, and we want to make teams earn it down the field.
It feels like a given when you're coaching linebackers. The tackles are going to start to add up. Talk about your linebacker group and what you expect from them this year.
Yeah, we have a returning Mike linebacker and Uihlein who finished the season off pretty strong. But I'll be the first to tell you, the best linebackers have a great defensive line in front of them. If those defensive linemen we have, you know, live up to their expectations, the linebackers are going to make a lot of plays.
Let's talk a little bit about the expectations on the D-line. I mean, Anto Saka is such an interesting story because The Athletic literally had him as a projected first-round pick. He's never started a game for you in college. And we talked a little bit with him in Las Vegas about how do you become an every down player. So what has Anto done to become a guy who can be on the field for you, not just on third down, but on first down?
Yeah, he's been on a mission. You know, he's had tunnel vision this whole offseason. You know, something you look at from a defensive perspective is, are your best players your hardest workers? And you're going to see guys like Anto, Carmine Bestone, Uihlein, the guys we talked about in the weight room, pre-practice, getting ready, getting their bodies right to go maximize themselves on the field. And Anto has had a great offseason. I'm excited to see him play this year.
Last thing I want to ask you, just as someone who grew up in this program, you're still one of the all-time leading tacklers in NCAA history. When you drive down Central Street and you see the new Ryan Field going up and everything that's happening around this program, how does it make you feel?
Oh, I mean, I bleed purple. Just so excited as you know, we're just can't wait to get this season going, and next year will be fun too.
Tim McGarigle, thanks a lot, Coach.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Back in Evanston, beautiful day along the shores of Lake Michigan as the Wildcats prepare for the 2025 season. And we're joined by a couple of stars of Northwestern's defense now, Anto Saka and Uihlein. Guys, interested, first of all, as you kind of get set for this season, defensively, I know you guys felt like you had some areas to improve on from last year. Anto, I'll ask you first, but Mac, you can elaborate on it as well. Where do you think you guys have taken the biggest jump since last season?
Just owning the line of scrimmage and just stopping the run game. That's always been a focal point for this defense since I've been here. But this year, I really feel like we've taken the steps just to make sure we control the line of scrimmage, playing on their side of the ball, and just being strong up front. That's what wins games out here.
Mac?
I think off the field thing that's been important for our team development has just kind of been the creation of standards and accountability measures that have been a little more kind of measured and extensive than we've had in the past, and that's been big, kind of helping the young guys develop, getting the whole team to develop, and having guys, like Anto said, in the trenches making plays, but also on the back end with the ability to rush and cover too. So
when you're talking about standards and measurements, are you talking about on the field, off the field?
Both, yeah. On the field, just how we're getting to the ball, and then also off the field, like how we're showing up to meetings, how we're showing up to the workouts every day, and just the urgency and kind of attentiveness that surrounds our program. So,
this is Coach McGarigle's second year as the defensive coordinator. I'm just interested, again, from both you and Anto, you can start. How have you seen him kind of grow into this position?
Yeah, obviously stepping into a new position. I mean, he's been a defensive guy his entire life, but, whenever you step into a new position, it's some growing pains. And this year, he's just wanted to make sure that he's allow us the defense to play faster, more free, and just really pressure the offense a lot more. So he's been a lot more aggressive, and he's been letting us get after the ball.
Yeah, from a linebacker perspective, he's been my coach since I got here, so it's kind of been the same. From him, I can expect the same thing every day, and we've been playing similar defenses and stuff since I've been here, so pretty similar for me.
Curious from each one of you guys. Mac, I can start with you. Describe Anto as a player.
Fast, explosive, gets to the ball, just good effort, plays hard, yeah.
All right, Anto, how would you describe Mac?
Mac is a commander, and he's out there with his head on fire, one of the most juiced-up guys on the field, a true leader, and he commands this defense. So,
where does that juice come from?
I love being out there with the guys. Yeah, that's my favorite thing about the sport is just being there with the guys. And I get more excited when other guys make plays than when I do. Partly because I got to catch my breath for the next play to get the calls and everything set up for the rest of the guys. But I just love being out there with the guys and love. We're a very close team, so when other guys are making plays, it's fun.
So, Anto, you made Bruce Feldman's freak list this year. What was your reaction when you found out you'd made that list, which I know a lot of guys really love to see their names on?
Yeah, I mean, it was cool. I had it sent to me. Ultimately, it's great, but that comes second to what we do here. It's always good to be recognized, but my eyes are laser focused on this team's success and what I can do to help us win some games this year.
Okay, if you don't want to talk about it, I'll let Mac talk about it. What's the freakiest thing you've seen him do?
I mean, he's just a great pass rusher. You can just put on the tape and see the freaky stuff he can do. Doesn't really need to be described. Just put on the tape.
Tell me about some of these transfers you guys got at linebacker, Yanni Karlaftis, Jack Sadowski. What have you seen from them in terms of helping this unit?
Yeah, I mean, just first of all, Yanni and Jack fit into the room great, and we're a really tight room, tight team. But then linebacker room specifically is very close, so they fit in well there. And then it's just good to have them around, and they're making plays and learning the defense here and getting pretty comfortable and playing a lot faster. So.
How about on the other side of the ball? Where have you guys seen the biggest jump in the offense this year, Anto?
Yeah, I love what I'm seeing out of our O-line. They're nasty, they're big, and they move people. So that's really been an exciting thing to see, even since spring ball and even going into summer camp. So just how the development of the O-line, how they're gelling, and it's just the nastiness. They're going to get after people this year.
How about from your point of view, Mac?
Obviously, Anto's more up front and is seeing that difference. But as a linebacker, we're seeing the difference in the O-line, but then also in the passing game and stuff, and the running backs as well. So I think all around the offense is looking good. So.
Well, looking forward to watching you guys this year. Mac, Uihlein, Anto, Saka. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Fair to say there was a pretty stark difference in Northwestern's defense between the 4 wins and the 8 losses last year, with NU allowing 125 fewer rush yards in the victories. Gave up 10 times as many rushing scores and runs of 10 yards or longer. None of the 4 teams the Cats beat went over 60 yards on the ground. You look at those numbers, Jake, and stopping the run begins up front. They feel really good about this defensive line. What did you see here today?
I would agree, as they should. And I think a big piece of that is they get guys back healthy now. Health is a big piece of their lack of rushing defense success down the stretch. And then you need premier guys like Saka there on the edge. Can he take that next step? But, when I just think of this defensive system, it reminds me of the Iowa type of principles where you're not going to see a ton of exotic pressures, exotic coverages, exotic formations. They're predicated on trusting one another, doing their job, and it helps to have veteran players in that front 6, front 7 that do trust one another. So I think that this defense should take that stride to be able to stop the run. Now the question is can they get after the quarterback on 3rd down when they force them into obvious passing downs, and then can they force some more turnovers?
And again, remember, Tim McGarigle was on the staff with Mike Hankwitz, and it was very much that philosophy of a bend but don't break defense. And Hankwitz obviously had a brilliant career here as defensive coordinator, and they're looking to continue. You talk about getting after the quarterback. They raved about Michael Kilbane, one of the defensive ends they feel like could be a huge part of the solution this year. You add in Saka, Aiden Hubbard. They really like that defensive end group.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, how you get after the quarterback is different here than maybe, I look at like Abdul Carter at Penn State, where they're going to feature him in the 3rd down package is going to be featured on one specific player. Whereas here it's more about principles. So for these guys, can they win within the scheme? Can they win within the system? And on any given week, it might be one guy or another guy that has the preferred matchup. Can they win that matchup when presented the opportunity is ultimately going to decide their season success.
What about the back end of the defense, linebackers and secondary?
Well, I'll tell you, Coach Braun was really excited about Josh Fussell. And I'd say just the safety room in general I'm excited about. They play that quarters coverage, split safety defense. So those safeties sit at about 10, 12 yards with their eyes in the backfield. They're a big piece of the rushing defense as well. again, it's really, there's nothing too sexy about the coverages, really. It's about being in the right position at the right time. They do not give up explosive plays. I would expect that trend to continue. But to take the step, it comes down to making plays yourselves, forcing turnovers, getting in the backfield and forcing negative plays.
They feel like they have a pretty good, solid crew here. Again, when they've been at their best, it has been the defense that carries them, and it does feel like this team, at least right now,
should be.
It feels like the defense is a little bit ahead of where the offense is. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. I also think that, for us, where you're at in camp, the further on you go in camp, it lends to the defense's favor because defense is more reactionary. So once they see everything you're doing offensively, they get to recognize the formations and the personnel. So that plays into it, but I would say that that's going to be the case. I mean, Coach Braun is a defensive head coach. We talked about the front and the experience there. They will lean on this defense once again to get them to 6 or 7+ wins.
A group that really dropped off at the end of Pat Fitzgerald's tenure. Now it feels like this defense is kind of back to where they want it to be. Wrapping things up from Evanston, where the Cats will open their home slate the first Friday of September here on the Big Ten Network against Western Illinois. That's just 6 days after what figures to be a very difficult season opener in New Orleans against Tulane. Conference opener September 13th. Big noon kickoff in town for the Battle of Oregon. The Cats face 2 of the Big Ten's 4 playoff teams from last year as they also go to Penn State, take on USC for the first time since the 1996 Rose Bowl game. 2 games at Wrigley Field this year, Michigan and Minnesota, as they await the new Ryan Field. They obviously want to take some momentum into the opening of Ryan Field next year, so final thoughts, what's it going to take for Northwestern to have a good season?
Well, they're going to have to be who they think they're capable of being. There's certainly a path with that schedule. It will not be easy for them to get to that bowl game. And I think the principles, you start with the defensive side of the ball. This is a sound defense. Well, they're going to have to be sound in some of these close games, down the stretch of close games. Health plays a big factor. Some of the things Coach Braun has been excited about going back to media days, the offensive line. He says that he expects them to take a stride. Well, we're going to have to see that manifest throughout this entire season. I think we're both excited about Preston Stone. But what ceiling can he bring to this offense? I think it's going to be reliant on the playmakers outside of him. And another piece of that there is again, the health. I think the starting unit on both sides of the ball for Northwestern is capable of leading them to their goals. Can some guys step up when people do get injured this year? That's just football.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, you mentioned being a bowl team. They've missed a bowl 3 of the last 4 years. They made one David Braun's first year and actually won it. But, I mean, this was a perennial bowl team, year in, year out. Pat Fitzgerald took them to 2 Big Ten championship games. I mean, there's no reason to think that this isn't a program that could do that kind of a thing. But this is a big year for them. When you think about heading into a new stadium next year, you want to have some sort of momentum there. It seems like you're hanging a lot of that on being really solid defensively and then figuring out a way. Can you win those games on the margins, Jake?
Yeah, and kind of to this point, when you talk about the past success under Pat Fitzgerald, I mean, all of a sudden players know if they come to Northwestern, they're not just going to get a great education. I mean, they're going to have a chance to go to Indy back in the day. They were making trips to compete for a Big Ten title. So it's this slow building process. I think Coach Braun has done a good job. Every single year you can see little movements in the right direction. We saw the shell of that out at practice today. Now it's really about capitalizing on it so then next year they can start from the same point and build on it going forward.
And you don't want to oversimplified. I mean, the game is about so much more than the quarterback spot. But again, I think I said it when we were talking about the offense. I'll say it again. When they've been good here, it's been because quarterback play has been good. They're not able to overcome bad quarterback play.
That's true in football, NFL, college. That's true across the conference. I mean, that's why we judge quarterbacks. It's a winning stat is a quarterback stat as well. And that's been a narrative for our conference for a few years now, is aside from the top teams, the quarterback play has been lacking. I go back to what we said earlier in the show that I really believe that there's not a team in the Big Ten that upgraded at the quarterback position more than Northwestern did with Preston Stone,
but it's the people around him. He's capable of being a high-level quarterback. It's the players around him that will decide his ceiling and the offense's ceiling.
So that's the story in Evanston, the Big Ten Network Tour heading west next. Ashley Adamson will take over the hosting duties on the West Coast as we check in on the defending Big Ten regular season and Big Ten championship game winners, the Oregon Ducks. That is coming up next here on our Big Ten Network Tour. We'll check out their retooled roster. Thanks to everyone here at Northwestern, including the SID, Zach Wingrove and Jacob Pavelak. Always a great stop. Cannot wait to see the new stadium a year from now. Should be huge here in Evanston. A lot of anticipation around that and anticipation around this coming year as well. Enjoy the West Coast swing as the tour continues from Oregon. See you next time.